Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. It's the first call of our year 2025. So good to see you all. Good to see all the friendly, familiar faces. And it feels like I'm in my place. So, yes, with the right people in my life. So today, let me just share my screen here. Share screen. Share screen. Share screen. Yeah. All right. So today is January 6th, and today the topics are: how do we have problems? Why is why a bad question? How to screw up a good memory and make bad memories worse. And we will see how far we go. Maybe we'll go further. Maybe we'll have deeper conversations about these topics. So we'll see. And let's just go to the disclaimer. The meeting is being recorded, but participating consent, including in the recording, and the recordings will be shared in the Utaptics groups via YouTube for replays for other people to watch and catch up on. I'm a level 4 practitioner. I'm here as your coach and a host mostly because we are all sharing our experiences and our insights and helping each other grow and create a mutual space of learning and deeper understandings. So with that finished, let's get started. All right. So whoever would like to read, just raise your hand, whenever you want. So, and we can just continue. Hey, Sherry, good morning. Good to see you. Torian, welcome. Randall. All right. Let's get going. I am on page 60. Everything inside of you is you. So whoever would like, open your level 1 book and raise your hand, whoever would like to read first.
I'll read.
All right, Jason. Thank you.
Okay. Everything inside of you is you. Taking the metaphoric mind and perception is projection to a deeper level. Utoptics teaches that everything inside of you is you. This includes people, places, things, pets, anything you have emotions, thoughts, judgments, or beliefs about. This applies to dreams as well. They are all representative aspects of yourself. If you think it's about them, it is really somehow representing something in you. You cannot perceive something in another that you don't relate to within yourself. It is not possible. If you've never experienced it or been exposed to it, you are incapable of recognizing it. We supply 100% of the meaning of our perceptions based on past experiences. When you think about a memory, you play every role in that memory. You are the movie director, you're the producer, and you are the actor or actors. Humans are very good at recognizing emotions on faces. Universally, sad, mad, happy, scared, etc., look the same in all cultures. The ability to recognize emotion is not what everything inside of you is referring to, but rather the meaning you give to what you notice. For example, your friend has an angry look on his or her face, and instead of simply noticing that they look angry, you start making up reasons in your head for the anger. You don't know what is going inside of their mind or everything that has happened with them. How can you possibly know what the anger is about, assuming you haven't asked? This is projection based on our perceptions. We all do this. We notice something and immediately begin searching for a way to interpret and or categorize the information based on our own internal references. Nothing but you can fit inside of you. Those people, places, things, pets are not inside your head. Keep going.
Um, I guess that's like kind of middle of my paragraph here, but
Oh, sorry,
maybe
my
that's
page on my online manual, my page ends there. So the next
okay.
page, okay. Let's see. What page number? That's 50.
59,
Uh,
60. Yeah.
okay, are not inside your head. Only you are in there. So it's only you inside your head. This means that it's a part of you and that it's representing them within you. And that you can change. That's good news. Since only you can fit inside your head, it's really a part you are playing, basically the role of other people.
Right. Thank you, Jason. Any insights on that?
Yeah, it's I've been like just diving into this work this last like couple of weeks, like just doing like 6 or 7 hours a day on this. It's been a lot. And this part has been one of the biggest pieces to the whole thing. Moving to that upper model of the world. And when you realize that it's up to you to change it, that you have control of everything and everything that's happening is really just you inside of you. I heard it said one time that you go in and you represent things to yourself. And so when you break that word down, represent, you take in what happens and you do a representation inside of your head of what you think it means. So you're in charge of that representation. And all of these things that are happening are these representations that you're giving to yourself. And when you have this realization that you're the one that's representing this information to yourself and that you're in the upper model of the world where you can change it, it's such an empowering thing. Like this is like such an important part where you're it's you doing it to you all the time, and you're the one that's we miss that step, like that nominalization. We make it into like one thing, but there's a presentation and a whole series of events that happened that we just sort of whiz through without like recognizing. And when we slow it down and recognize that we're doing all of those little steps and that we can change all the little pieces and filters within those steps and perceptions, there's really nothing you can't change. It's you're driving the bus all the time. It's really, really exciting.
Love it. Thank you so much. I love how you use the word and represented the word represent. Just if you just keep that in mind, it's just amazing. We can always keep that in mind. Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else would like to share anything, any insights?
I'd like to share.
Yes, please.
I remember this saying, my perception is my reality. And, but until you really break it down and see how much of that is true, it's just amazing what you find out. And, because I noticed after my first husband died and I was with, my second one, I, one time he said to me, "Stop it. I am not him." And I didn't even realize what a program I was running from, my old marriage, my old life. And I brought so much of that into all my other relationships and stuff. But until I really got to see it was me coming from me, that's when I was able to change it. So, our perception is our reality. That's best for first place to start, I think.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Yes, our
And there
perception
was
is our
so much
reality.
about projection too, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
perception.
Yes, exactly. Because we think they're doing something about how we represent inside of ourselves, and then we just project it onto other people.
Yeah.
Love it. Anyone else would like to share? Right. Well, we can, who would like to read next? Go for it, Viv.
Important facts about everything inside of you is you. No one else can fit inside your head, so everything and everyone in your memories is now you. What you're experiencing in your mind or as other people is really a part of you that represents them, not the people themselves. Your results in using eutaptics depends on you choosing to make peace with that part of you that represents them. When you think about a memory, you play every role in that memory. You are the movie director, producer, actor, actors. How do we have problem? Problems are the result of the beliefs held in the subconscious. Beliefs are operating systems supported by proof and evidences, memories combined with feelings that make the belief seem real. Beliefs form our perceptions through which we see the world and ourselves. What the conscious mind sees as a problem is simply the expression of the references held in the subconscious. When you change the references, the results change automatically. Important facts about how we have problems. One, problems are automatic results of the references held in the subconscious. Two, when you change the references, you automatically change the results, and the problems then naturally change.
Thank you, Viv. Any insights on this? How do we have problems?
Well, I think for me, the thing I've known it for a long time, but when you step into it, as Jason was saying, is when I love that too by what do you say? Your representation to yourself. I love that. It's becoming easier and easier and easier to shift and to also just be in the moment. That's the whole secret that I have found through this. If I'm always in the moment, then there isn't a problem. And recognizing that everything that's like my husband, I've chosen him as my project that I've been working on. And I'm just going to work on that. And that's really, I think, going to cover it. Not really, but you know what I mean. And so it's really, really interesting when how I perceive things. He'll say something and how I hear it. So that really is a powerful piece for me about how that's where the problems come from, because it's the meaning I give it. So now I've just started actually laughing at it, like, or I have this thing in my head. Really, we're going to go there again? Like, what a comedy show! I continue to keep doing that just to remind myself, it could go either way. So
True. Exactly. Yeah. Anyone else would like to share?
I can share an experience that kind of brought this to light. When I was getting into eutaptics, there was a lot of anxiety, a lot of like thoughts about the judgments of others and like how am I showing up in a community. And so I was working on that. I was tapping on all these different things. And like one time I had an experience where somebody came into my workspace and they started like yelling at me, like top of the voice, like how horrible I was, all the mistakes that what a bad person I was, blah, blah, blah. And it was really cool to just be like not triggered by that, which in the past would have absolutely just kind of sent me down this rabbit hole in my mind of like, oh no, they're right, like da da da. And I was just kind of like watching them in the moment, like very kind of like still water, just being like, oh, this is about them. And like realizing kind of the everything that this work is talking about um, in terms of we are the production, we're the beliefs inside of us are producing our experience of the reality outside of us. That was really
Yeah.
cool. Just like, oh, there it is. Now it's like this stuff works. Like here it is showing up in my experience.
Yeah, and then
That was
also
really cool.
ties in with everything inside of us is us, right? Because if they're yelling at you about something, they got a problem inside of them. If they're telling you names, they're talking about themselves again. We can always say that. And then, it's like how we, receive that, and if we believe those words about ourselves, then, we are believing that about ourselves. So it's just beliefs. Yeah, and I was remembering like, just growing up, we not just from our parents, just like watching movies, we just formed these beliefs. And as I was listening, Vivian readings, like having an issue in my life right now. And so it's like, oh, that's just a belief that I made up from watching movies. Like, well, hello, let's keep that. That's just a belief, it's not the whole world works like that, because it's just a thing, I mean, it's not true. It's not a universal truth. It's not the ultimate truth. And so I can let go of that rigidity or a belief that I formed, and I can be in the moment.
It's really funny. Last night I was watching I was watching The Sopranos, and I had a realization, kind of just like you were saying, is that I had this old boss who used to sit. He was such an asshole. This guy was just such a prick, and he would always sit in his office smoking these cigars and doing this thing. And I saw in this one episode of Sopranos, Tony Soprano sits at his desk doing that exact same thing. And he must have picked that up. He was exactly like one of those guys who he was acted just like him. Like he thought he was Tony Soprano. And I was like, oh, he probably picked that. He like all of the physiologies, the way that he held the cigar, the like facial expression, the length of time he exhaled the smoke. It was and I saw in that one episode, it was just something that he had like programmed himself with, that he gravitated towards too. And that's probably exactly where he picked that behavior pattern up. And I thought, that is him. Like that's my ex boss. Like that's him sitting at the like he's and and then it's like that's we all are getting these from movies and from culture and from how our parents brought us up. We're picking up all of these programs and we're not aware of it. And you can start to see where people are grabbing these little like traits and behaviors and belief systems and things from. It's pretty interesting.
Oh, cool. Now you can just laugh at your boss.
Now I can, yeah, I like let it go. Yeah, he it wasn't personal. He just thinks he's Tony Soprano. Let it go.
So funny. Anyone else would like to share anything or examples or insights? All right. So who would like to read next? Why is why a bad question?
I can go ahead.
Sure, please.
All right, so without the understandings of eutaptics, asking why usually leads you down a trail that justifies the reasons you should have the problem. It helps build excuses, connections, and a family of ideas to support the problem. And worse yet, it builds an identity from the problem. I am the smoker, for example. In our society, we tend to believe that if we know why something happened, that leads to the solution. But knowing the cause of a problem doesn't solve it. One of the best things you can do to change your life is learn to ask yourself better questions. Instead of asking, why do I always screw up? Ask, what did I do right today? If you believe you're smart, the RAS, the reticular activating system, will filter information that supports this belief. Conversely, if you believe you're dumb, it will filter information that supports this belief. Perception is created and it is the real cause of problems. In eutaptics, we do ask why, but only because we know how to change the whys and turn them into positive resources. This changes the way that we created the problem in the first place, and it allows us to generate new productive behaviors in place of the unproductive ones.
Would you like to finish that section up and then we can
Sure.
yes, thank you.
Some important facts about why is why a bad question.
Mm-hmm.
Asking why do I have this problem keeps you in the problem, and the answers to that question provide reasons for having the problem. Instead of asking why, ask how do I know? And this leads you to find the subconscious, unconscious mind or limbic system references so you can change them.
Thank you. Yeah. Would you like to share anything?
I was just talking with a friend of mine. We both noticed this quite a bit over the last couple weeks of like how much state impacts what we're able to perceive and how true something that we perceive seems to be. It's like this is just how it is. Like this is the way that life is, or this is the way that I am, or this is holding me back, and it's like this is the only way that it could be. I can't see any way around it, kind of a thing. And then we both had these experiences, mostly through tapping, where it's like getting outside of that state creates a different perception where we're like, oh, it's actually not a big deal, like at all. It seems like so permanent, so solid, so like very like insurmountable. And just changing the state, just changing the references, like it talks about the reticular activating system. Like again, we've talked about this before. Like I love how mechanical the system is, how it like makes it very practical of like changing the way that we're navigating reality or what seems to be reality. It makes it so much more navigable, that we have more options, we have more way of like making decisions, being more empowered in that way. So yeah, we both kind of had that experience of like, oh, if I just change my state, like what seemed impossible, insurmountable, immediately becomes like, that's very doable. I don't have to do it the way that I thought I needed to before. So that was really cool.
Absolutely. Thank you. Changing states is so, so paramount, definitely. Um, I also like, just asking the questions, like instead of asking like, why did I screw up? What did I do wrong? Or about other people, oh, they did this wrong and they did this wrong. And we are always asking the why questions, It's like, oh, what did they do good today? It's like every night, writing the gratefulness has changed my life. I think I'm close to day 1000 since I started Utaptics, like writing down daily, minus the few days on vacation, things, the whole daily routine changes. But it's like just asking myself questions or just writing down the gratefulness and like even like sometimes people around you like make you angry or oh everything is going bad, but then also like um cultivating the habit of gratefulness, and then you sit down to write it down. It forces you, it allows you, it opens up the opportunity of looking for good, like okay, what did they do right today, or why are they, how are they making my life better, or how are they, bringing joy, just looking for the better things. But when we go in the bad state, like Aaron's like state, we all always looking for like, oh, why is this so bad? Why, we're asking the bad, wrong, why questions. So, and like Robert says, only ask the why do I have this problem only when you're like, go and tap on it. Otherwise, I'd be, try to stay away from the whys. So
Tristy,
unless you, yeah.
question about that,
Hmm.
about those states. So do we all have like individual references, like past references attached to different states? Like, so like when we go into, say we get angry, all of a sudden when we're in that angry state, we have easier access to all the things that went angry in our life. So that's why it seems so permanent, because we're just drawing up in the angry straight state. We keep bringing up references that from the past that correspond to that state. And
Yeah, I would say so because so like you got angry, say, at a coworker, right? And you're all this angry. And so like in a session, I would ask like, when was when did you have these same feelings before? When was the worst time? When was the because it's connecting all these previous states, right? When was the first time? When was the worst time? And when we work through those, knock those out, because this is just a metaphor for the past ones, it's just a metaphor. It's the same similar attachment to all the other times. And so you may not be, you may not have such a big reason to be angry at your coworker if, because we get angry and then it's like, oh, and then this, and then that happened, and, unconsciously, and then that happened. And my whole life is about like, oh, the coworkers, the bad relationships with coworkers, just as example, right? And so, yeah, this anger will like all get connected to the past states of angry in certain similar situations.
so if, for
And
example, like each emotion is like a trance, right? Like you're going into this
yeah,
trance of anger, and then while you're in that trance, that's the thing that kind of struck me as interesting is that I can't remember. Was it Aaron that was speaking previous? What Aaron was saying about when you're like in the states, it feels like it's so impossible when you're like in this stuck state, and then all of a sudden like something happens and you go to a different state and all these possibilities open up. But I think one of the interesting part to me is the realization is that when you're in that trance of anger, you basically own like this reason it seems so impossible to change is as you're searching through that trance, it's giving you references of all the other angry times that you've had in the past. And then when you shift the state to something else, you get a whole different set of references and a whole different set of possibilities in the different trance. So it's like when you keep brooding on something over and you're in that same trance, it's like it feels impossible to change because there's no references for in that trance for how it can get better.
absolutely. And that's really deep there because when we get into that trance, it's also an opportunity to find all the other times we were in that trance and be able
Oh
to
yeah.
heal the chain of it, right? Otherwise, yeah, bullseye, right, Mary? Because that, and then the more we tap, the more we are able to come back to our center. We have the opportunity to just like knock the whole chain down. Because for me, like for example, like uh I may not be able to connect to all the memories and all the past events, but until I step into that one trance, it opens up all the past times. And then we can take that opportunity to feel sorry for ourselves, to start blaming other people, or taking the same opportunity to, even if you can, okay, write it down with the consciousness that I'm going to go take care of this. I'm going to start tapping, writing down all those. Okay, now, it's like or we can just ask, okay, why does this happen? It will give us oh, and because this, and because that happened, and because that happened. So, or we can just write in, okay, this happened and this happened. It's giving me an opportunity to access all the other information. I'm going to write it down. I'm going to take charge of my life and I'm going to tap on all those and to
Okay.
release all those. Yeah. And then also like, as soon as we take charge, that's a state change.
Okay. I like that. As soon as
Yeah.
we take charge, it's a state change. Okay.
Yeah, because we are not in the victim state anymore. Now we are taking charge. And then we can write it down and then we can like now we have the resources, then we can even do a better state change. We can come back to a centered, positive, happier, and then we have the list and we can start tapping on those.
Yeah. Thank you.
Welcome. Anyone else would like to share? Hey, Kenneth.
I just say that, yeah, that's completely true. Like, for example, um, take a telephone company. I won't name it. Say AT&T, for example. And I had a company for decades, and it was so intertwined with five or six different programs uh, that interconnected everything that I couldn't get rid of them. So I would have to call them constantly because they would create a problem. And so I would tell the people, trying not to scream at them, you know, that like, I'm not angry because of this. I'm angry because of the other 50 to the other 100 times I've had a call about this added together. So yeah, that does happen. But the other thing that's important, mostly if you know that, and then also if you know as you just read, that it's all about you, that makes you very powerful. And you then have the possibility to change it any way you want. And now mostly I end up laughing about it. It's just like the lady is like, that's the funniest thing is like when you just laugh about it because in the grand scheme of things, it's not really that important anyhow. So yeah, but you're totally right, Jason. It's that, and the more you remember to remember that, and the most important thing is to remember that you're in control. You can change that all out.
I like
That's
that. Just remembering to remember it.
yeah. It's just the remembering to remember, and it's it's so easy sometimes when people to fall out of the upper level because things occur in life and then you forget and you just get grabbed by a program, and it's running you. And until you go, wait a minute, I know better than this, and step out of that, and then use this information that most people are not aware of. Um, so I've seen people like that too, where people have been screaming at me like neighbor behind, there was a guy I had working for me, and this person was just going on and on and on. And the more they screamed, the calmer I got. And then I was beyond pleasant and nice to this person, right? And after it's all said and done, the guy who's working for me in the yard goes, "How can you do that? I would have killed him." I go, "Yes, I know. About 2 years ago, I would have too, with a rake." I said, but now I realize, who he is, and I'm just watching this, going, interesting, interesting. Yes, has nothing to do with me. And if you keep that in your mind, then you just stay at a higher level, um, and things don't bother you. And that's where, or things that used to bother you don't bother you again.
I think it allows you to not take everything so personally when
Right.
you realize that it's like everything they're doing, it's all about them. It's all happening inside of them. It really has nothing to do with you. So you don't take it personally. And when you don't take it so personally, you don't have those big heated reactions because, if you think it's all about you, like they're intentionally trying to threaten you or intimidate you or yell at you or whatever, then you feel you have to match that reaction to where, with an equal reaction. But when you realize it has nothing to do with me, you just kind of easily let it go. You're like, yeah, whatever. Okay.
I do remember the thing that was funny about it to me was like doing some trimming, some stuff, and a tiny, tiny twig from a tree, you know, fell into their yard. It's all fenced, right? And I look over the fence, the yard, and they're screaming about this twig falling into their yard and making it cluttered. And I look over, and their place is a total wreck. There's junk everywhere. And it's like, yeah, I could take the entire tree and throw it in your backyard, and no one would even notice it. But in comparison, right? So it was kind of like bizarre yet hilarious, but gave me, I looked at it as an opportunity to practice really. And um, it's it's a powerful thing when people can't like push a button.
It's
And
powerful.
staying in the upper model is the most important thing. Although it's a constant, I found it's a constant awareness of being aware of being aware is I think what you call it. Uh, being aware of being aware constantly, so that you stay above it all. And you can't let things drag you down, especially yourself.
Can I mention something cool? Because I had somebody try a session, and the feedback that I got was that they were worried that they were saying like they had some OCD tendencies, um, and there's they understood like as you're learning how to tap on yourselves, like you now have this skill that will help you to keep your mind clean.
Right.
And they heard that and they were like,
Oh,
uh-oh, because their OCD was like, oh, like the metaphor was like, it's like barnacles on a ship. And now I have to make sure that everything that comes into my world, everything comes in my sphere, like I have to keep it clean and no barnacles. And they were worried about that.
yeah.
Fair enough. And it was interesting I had another person who was like kind of giving feedback on that perspective. They had done several sessions and had been tapping for longer. And they were saying like, it's understandable that kind of reaction,
Sure.
but their perspective on that reaction having tapped for longer was to say that like it doesn't happen like that. It's not this constant vigilance thing. It's like the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Yeah.
Like the less barnacles attached in the first place.
Until the point where it's like you're not even aware of it, you just are it.
Yeah, yeah.
It just takes practice. Well,
I've
and
heard
actually
that from a lot of like
practice.
I've heard that from a lot of longer term practitioners because like learning from other people who've been in the space for longer, tapping with Robert, learning from him for a long time. Um, very consistently, I've heard this pattern where they would say, like, there was just this point where I didn't feel like I needed to go back to do so much self work every day. Like when I was in it, it was like, this is the only thing I got to do. Like, I got to like put in the work and da da da. And there was like a period of that where it was like, it was an investment. It was like cleaning up my head and going back to my history and cleaning up these memories and da da da. And then very consistently they would seem to say like, and then I just kind of like felt like I didn't have to do that anymore because it felt like it was all relatively like, for sure there's more to do, and but it's like I don't have to invest so much into it because now I feel awesome so consistently without having to invest so much on a day-to-day basis. Like
Right.
stuff will come up, I'll tap on it, I'll clean up, and then, like I can invest some more, but I feel really good and I'm getting my goals achieved and I'm great with my relationships, and like so there's kind of like this turning point that in the beginning it can seem like hard. Like, will it ever come? I don't know if it's gonna come because it's like I'm getting in touch with what's in my head and it's a lot.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
it's
just
I
to kind of like
there
share
is
that there's hope.
what they mentioned to you that is true as well. After a while, after years and years, yeah, there isn't, since you've worked on so much, it's not there. And you flip all these things and it's all good. So
the,
everything,
the
I hate to use the word should, but it's like, is more likely that that's the goal anyway, and he's achieved it.
the best way that I've heard it put, the easiest way was if you picture a plane on takeoff, when a plane is taking off to get into the sky, the pilot has to push the throttle all the way like 100% for takeoff, and the plane's going. But then you get to cruising altitude. Oh, and at cruising altitude, it doesn't take effort anymore. Where
No,
it's just there's that beginning part where there's a lot to clean up, and you have to push the throttle to the max, or you have to use a lot more than you would normally use to get the
right.
plane off the ground, and then you eventually hit that cruising altitude and everything. They put it on cruise control, the pilot leaves the cockpit, they walk around, and the plane is flying itself at that point.
Mhm.
And I've seen that example have play out many times where like in the beginning it's always harder. It's always like you start a new skill, you're playing baseball, you're starting a new job, there's a lot more conscious effort that goes into it in that takeoff phase. And then you look back on that job once you're into it for 6 months, and like you're just showing up, like, yeah, this goes there, everything just works, and there's not all of that conscious effort. And the other part of it too is just making that conscious realization at the beginning of like how hard is it to not do the work. So like if I don't clean up my head and I don't pay attention to these things, that's also a very hard path too, and that path gets harder and harder and harder and harder as you go on. You're 70 years old and haven't cleaned up any of your problems from life, or you're 70 years old and everything's going good for you. It's like the hard path gets easier and the easy path gets harder. And it's like when you consciously make that realization, even with like the OCD, I know I'm a little bit like that too, where I'm like, oh, I got all this stuff I got to do. But then when you stop and you're like, okay, I'm going to be using my OCD on all the stuff that's not working anyway. So I might as well put this OCD into this path that's going to get easier. And having the realization that in the beginning of anything, it's that takeoff phase, like the plane taking off. And okay, it won't be very long until I hit that cruise control. And it happens consistently every time. You know that it's coming, you expect it, and your mind kind of goes at ease knowing that that's the pattern that happens with any new skill.
That's true. Even in my business, I would tell people starting out, say, well, it's gonna be an incline. It'll take at least there are many pieces parts, and you can't learn them all at once because it's too much to overload. But give yourself at least 6 months, and then all of a sudden, it'll like come together. You just go. It's like oh, and you're like, you got it, and you
Absolutely.
and that's kind of what happens. Is It's also, I would think, um, feasible too that you would get better at catching yourself over time when things, take a left turn. You know, you'd you get better and better at catching yourself going, "Oh, no, no, I'm not going there. I'm going over here."
Get back.
Yeah.
Just get back. Okay, screwed up. Get back. Screwed up. Get back. Just get back. You don't have to have all the drama of the screw up. You just get back.
Right.
It builds like that.
Exactly.
So yeah,
Exactly.
I can vouch for that certainly as well because in the beginning it's like, oh, my life is falling apart. It's like every day is chaos. You're tapping on yourself every day, and it's just like it feels like you can never get out of it because it's just a big, you know, either it's like the plane is taking off, it's like so much effort. You don't even realize you're getting up there because it's just effort, or you just feel like you're in this, uh, I don't know, quicksand. You cannot get out. But as, but like remembering to remember, the more you do it, you just get into this habit. It just becomes this automatic thing because the more you do it, the more you do it unconsciously. You don't even have to think about it. And then, you just catch yourself. Or it's like, oh, I'm not going to go into that because I know that's just a program. And you just tap on yourself. Or you come to this, like for me personally, like you come to this identity of who I am. I'm not that anymore. I'm not a victim anymore. I don't have to do that anymore. That was just, whatever. I learned it. I did it. But you come to this, I become an identity that is like, um, I'm not going to say that, oh, I'm unshakable or anything, but I am more solid in myself. I am more solid. I know who I am. I love myself because I would say like before I couldn't say that about myself, but like, I feel like I can say that I love myself. And, if people say something or do something, it's not about me. And I can tap on that. I can take charge. I can take ownership. Okay, where is my part? Where is their part? And I tap through that. So you just come to this cruising place that you don't have to like 24/7. It's like, oh shit, I have all this stuff inside me. I need to tap, tap, tap. So, yeah, it's just about the more we do it, it becomes a habit and we become a different person. We are not the victim anymore. We are not, you know, whatever, anymore that yeah,
Another part of
so
that analogy for the plane taking off is like I know whenever I used to have like a really big fear of flying, and like anytime like the plane would start moving across the tarmac, I would get so nervous. I'd be like squeezing the chairs. I'd have like a bunch of 50 drinks in me because I like was trying to like just like black out for the takeoff. And I felt the nervousness building up in me so much. And then the plane goes faster and faster. It gets more and more intense. The plane starts to take off, and you feel the wheels leave the runway, and you're like back in your chair, and everything's like shaking. And then all of a sudden, as soon as you get up to that cruising altitude, there's just this sense of like, oh, where it's like everything levels out and it's just all good again. And that beginning part for starting anything new, especially when you're working on yourself, like I think it's like that's probably the biggest example of like, because you're going into all your junk, you're going into all that, and so it's going to feel like that intensity and that craziness, and there is an end to it. It will calm down when you hit that cruising altitude. When you get up there and everything levels out, it happens every time if you just stick through that, if you just stick with it and you don't land the plane, you know, if you'll just carry on through it, you always get to that thing. And if you have a mentor, like a group like this, where you have a blueprint of what to do next and how to, what, if this happens, then you go here. And that, like, this is like such the fastest way to do here. You have mentors, you have support, you have like manuals, you have videos, you have the whole thing is laid out to get everything out of you as quickly as possible. It's so good.
absolutely. And a metaphor within the metaphor of the plane taking off is the plane is taking off from the lower model of the world and it's taking us to the upper model of the world. It's gonna take an effort. It's gonna be like grueling and it's gonna be like tough, but just to keep it, we're going from the lower model of the world to the upper model of the world, and then it's smooth sailing.
That's so
And
good.
yeah, there will be hiccups, there will be turbulence, but we're good.
Such a good way to put it. For where you're going to the upper model, there's going to be that shakiness. And then
Yeah,
when you get there, you're driving the bus, you're good. You're driving the plane, flying the plane.
that's right. Flying the plane. I love it. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much, everyone. Anyone else has anything to share? Any insights, examples? If not, we can go to the next topic. This was really good discussion. Thank you. How to screw up a good memory. So important. We were touching on it a little bit. Was it last week or the week before? But how to screw up a good memory. Who would like to read?
I can
Mary,
read. Yeah.
please.
How to screw up a good memory. You can take good memories and make them bad. Think of a good memory and start thinking about what didn't go right. Maybe it was just one little thing. Now think about more things you didn't do right. You'll notice that as you do this, the good memory starts feeling not so good. This is how we screw up a good memory. Even though it sounds crazy to do, most of us are very good at this process. The death of a loved one is a perfect example. If you recall a positive state, positive experience, happy memory with that person, but soon begin to focus on the fact that they're no longer here, how you miss them, how you'll never hear their voice again, etc., you are screwing up a good memory. You will find yourself crying and feeling pain and loss when you think about this person who brought so much love and joy to your life. And that doesn't help anybody, not you, and certainly not the one who passed on. Would they really want you to feel that way? Instead, remember the good times and replay them over and over. Become skilled at feeling good, and you will find that it becomes easier to achieve in all areas of life. Keep good memories sacred. Important facts about how to screw up a good memory. The body follows the mind. Whenever you put focus, wherever you put your focus determines feelings, emotions, and sensations you'll experience. When thinking of a good memory, your body is following that focus and producing the chemicals that make you feel good. When you start to notice or think about the negatives, your body begins to produce chemicals that make you feel bad. This creates a link between the bad feelings and the good memory, screwing up the good memory.
Yeah. Thank you, Mary. Would you like to share any insights?
Um, it's true. I notice when I start thinking about bad things, my body definitely does produce the chemicals that make me feel bad. Like, for instance, if somebody says something and I perceive it as a threat, my hands will instantly start to sweat, and it's just so automatic. And it's really funny because I never really noticed it before because I would just continue on with that emotion and with that unconscious uh act, and now that I'm aware of it, it's like I can instantly change my perception, realize I need to change my perception, and then my hands stop sweating. It's like, so, I can control my body that way, and it's quite a wonderful skill to have.
You love it. Anyone else would like to share anything?
Yeah.
Hey, Katie.
It's kind of like reverse, like like you know how we will defrag a bad memory and then layer on a good memory. It's kind of like doing that in reverse, although you're not like intentionally doing it. So it's like you're in a good memory and now you're thinking about the bad stuff. So now the bad stuff is covering the good. So it's kind of like reverse doing what we do in eutaptics, but just like a natural process that we do.
Absolutely. Yes. And that's why in new tactics, when we go to the bad, we step into it, we're really aiming at what is it that we want to change? The sweating hands, the remembering of the past memory, whatever it is, how bad it is, what does it mean for us? Like really step into it, and then we're tapping. We're stepping out of it. You tap,
Mhm.
quack, 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 whatever, do goofy things. We tap, 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 step. We make sure we are stepping out of it. Then we anchor, and then we go to the good memory, feel good. And then with that good state, we go and visit the bad memory. But if we do the reverse, right? We feel good, we feel good, we feel good, and then we go, oh, but this happened, right? You know, and so like, and then we are looking at the good memory and bad memory, and the good memory becomes mediocre, and then it gets worse and worse and worse. Yeah,
So the
so
bad
totally true.
the that revisiting the good memory with the bad piece fractionates the good memory. So it starts adding little bits of bad pieces to the good memory
Yeah,
until eventually it contaminates the good memory and it just feels bad.
yeah. It's like, yeah, oh, you have, oh, so for example, like you have a wonderful relationship. Oh, and but they did this, and then they did this, and then you're just like polluting it. You're, contaminating it, certainly. Yeah. Or, looking at grandpa. Oh, but grandpa died. It's so sad. And then, instead of looking at the good memories of grandpa, all the good times, you're adding the sadness, right? We add sadness, we add other things to it, and then we just make the good memories sad. Yeah.
Somebody else told me one time, it was just popped into my head. It was a funny way to think about those good and bad memories, but it was like maximize the positive, minimize the negative, reaffirm the affirmative, and don't fuck with Mr. In Between. Just let it go. Just make the good, minimize the bad, reaffirm what you want, and don't fuck with what's in the middle. Somebody said that. It was so like that's perfect for that, but that's a good way to think of those.
I love it. I'm gonna have to write it down. It's so good.
I wrote it
Yeah, and so we keep the good memories sacred. Like, okay, they are sacred. You do not visit the bad and then go to the good. You keep them, have a wall between them. So when we are going from the bad to good, knock it off, defrag, put a chink in there, whatever. And and then we go to the good memory. Keep it sacred. Yeah. Anyone else would like to share?
Part of what comes to mind is to Jason's metaphor of, getting a plane to take off is as you start to do this work, like recognizing how a lot of social systems, a lot of media, like a lot of different sources in our lives are not really designed to help us get that plane off the ground. And to Jason's point, like the phrase you just said, like there are some attitudes or like some codes of conduct that we have to establish within ourselves to like reduce the friction to get it off the ground. And so,
Yes.
tapping is one of those great ways. And so, like, also thinking that biologically, our brain is set up for survival rather than for, having a healthy mind or being peaceful or whatever that is. Um, and so just understanding like that's part of the dynamic is like it's really good to have certain behaviors in place to not screw up the good memories so that we're able to get to that cruising altitude. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, and
that's
understanding there are going to be some influences that are not supportive that I'm going to have to draw a line and say, like you said, don't fuck with the in between or, don't,
don't go there.
support the negative affirmation. Yeah, exactly. Like there's some rules that I have to have that society or whatever external influence is not necessarily going to support me in doing, but
Yeah.
it's really important for me to do that. Like
And,
I value myself enough to support myself in that.
and the survival, I think the survival mind is always wanting to land the plane. The survival mind doesn't want to get to cruising altitude. Like you start going up and it gets shaky and it's like, oh, we got to be safe and land the plane. We're going to get. So it's like the survival mind is screwing up that getting to the cruising altitude where it's easy because you got to get through that shakiness to get up there. And as soon as the shakiness happens, all your past references and fears and all those things come up and it lands the plane every time. So you never get there. It really, like you're saying, having those systems in place to make sure that you overcome the conditioning, overcome what the media is saying or whatever. Like people want you afraid and controllable, and they don't want you to get to where it's easy. When it's hard and you're struggling, you're very easily controllable. So it's like you said, it's exactly right. Having those protocols in place for yourself to know that those things are not necessarily going to support you getting to cruising altitude. So you have to take the upper model part of the world where you set up those things that you need to get there to realize that it's not supporting you. That was really, really helpful for me. Thank you.
Certainly a little bit off the topic because uh, not about exactly about the screwing up the good memory, but also there's like cultural acceptance, like to talk about and rehearse the bad, yeah, I'm so sorry, this and that. And then, we learn from that and we fall into that, that we have to rehearse and it's like uh connect it's like some definitions of connections is like we connect through our bad and we sit and talk about whatever bad happened over and over and over and rehearse and rephrase and rehash it, so we have to just take charge, like I'm not doing that, yeah, you go visit it when you're working on it, like yeah, go dive in deep and just go find all the bad stuff that's in there, but you don't have to like keep repeating and rehearsing that over and over again, you know. Looks like Jason disappeared. I don't see him. But yeah, it's like it's just a cultural norm of doing it over and over again, and we talk about it, and we keep talking to each other about it, and we stay on the ground. The plane doesn't take off because it's connection, because we connect with people in our world talking about the bad stuff that happened. So we gotta just, okay, I'm only gonna go there when I'm tapping on myself, If not, you just take off. It's like, yeah, let's do something more productive together and, make good memories instead of rehearsing the bad. Yeah. Any other insights?
Well, one person that I spoke with who was very, very good at this, they said when you find yourself doing this, because it would become automatic, there's also a thing of automatic, one guy calls it ants, automatic negative thoughts, right? When you notice that you're doing this, you just got to say to yourself, and sometimes even if you're alone, I guess, out loud, is stop it. Just stop. And don't entertain yourself with this. And then shift to something else. Just change what you're doing. Um, even some people, probably best examples might be somebody who has insomnia. and they keep thinking of all this stuff and all this stuff on and on and on and keeping themselves up and then worried that okay, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, oh now it's 4 o'clock in the morning. um that's probably an extreme of that, but it's also something else to be aware of, to stay aware of, that if you find yourself doing that, just say stop, maybe even visualize a stop sign, and then shift gears, make a right turn, go to something good. That's and your mind will get used to that too, almost like you don't have to remember riding a bicycle, you know. If you've ever learned, you just get on a bike and ride. If you practice piano for years and years, you don't have to think about playing, you just sit down and play it. You keep doing this over and over and over again too, it'll just automatically do it and edit things. It'll probably edit it for you and stop sending the negative thoughts to you. Just takes a bit of practice is all it does, and diligence.
One thing that comes to mind with that one is like it reminds me of affirmations of like if you say to yourself, like there's a difference in what I'm hearing and what you're saying and what people not trained in new topics might think of when somebody's just saying to themselves, stop it. Because like there can be some kind of like beating up on yourself, like that comes with like I'm just telling myself to stop it, but actually problem's not going away. Like I'm saying it, it's like stop it, come on, what's wrong with you? Like da-da. And like people can get into that pattern, but what I'm hearing and what you're saying is there is a big distinction in like it's more about conditioning and it's more about using the saying of stop it or the thinking of stop it as a pattern interrupt, and that
Right.
that can take time. And there's a difference between like stop it, I'm not stopping, what's wrong with me, and like the kind of like unfamiliar with the Utopic's approach of like using it as a pattern interrupt, and these things do take time, and being patient with yourself like in that process. And there
Right.
are many other pattern interrupts that can be used, like
Oh yeah.
versus that kind of like, so just, yeah, there's like some nuance to what you're recommending, like on top of like what maybe like somebody, like if you just picked a person off the street and said like, say stop it to yourself and that will solve your problems. And they'll be like, what are you talking about? I do that already. And it's like, I feel worse versus like using that as a pattern interrupt, as a kind of like a defrag to keep, I think you mentioned it, like to keep doing it and like use it as a kind of like a conditioning approach. Like I'm
It is.
using this as a technique rather than a direct instruction that I'm expecting my mind will immediately apply, which doesn't always happen.
And I don't know, now that I think about it, yeah, this other person too. They this might work as well. I mentioned visualizing a stop sign, right? A habit a person got into who changed themselves dramatically, and I used to do this too, is every time they stopped at a stop sign, right? The car was stopped at a stop sign, they'd smile. They just did. Anytime they stopped at a red light, right? They smile, you know, and because they got to do something, why not that? So I would think that would make, and I'm talking about things that come up all the time that maybe are big issues that you're trying to change and they keep bubbling up somewhere. And that's when you use that, I say stop, just stop. And okay, see a stop sign and then think about something good or say go to a happy memory, something like that. So it's definitely a defrag. And I would think that if you started doing that too, smiling at stop signs, um, yeah, but I wouldn't stay there for like too long, or you could get out of the car. Uh, but that and red lights and so forth, that would even make it stronger when you used it, if you wanted to. It's all a choice, but it's something that's worked. So I happen to mention it to kind of share it with people.
Um, I don't know if it's in level 3 or it's in level 4. It's a high level technique. Your tactics technique is when you keep going down the yeah, cancel, cancel, cancel. And it's called stop that shit and shut the fuck up. And then you go do something good. You tap, you tap, because the mind has a habit of just like once the spiral starts, you just keep going down. Just as soon as you notice it, noticing is the habit. Noticing it, stop that shit, shut the fuck up. You tap, you tap, go to a happy memory, and then go and revisit it. Okay, it's less, you know, and then you tap and then go to a happy memory and then go revisit it less. So, not just you say stop and we're not going there, we're suppressing it, we are repressing it, we're not doing that. So it's like you every time you notice you just say stop, smile at the stop sign, say, you know, stop, cancel, clear, cancel, cancel, and cancel, whatever you want to use, and then you tap on it. You just tap through it, go to a happy memory, and then go revisit it, and that spiral will flatten out itself,
Yeah,
certainly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Great. Yeah, that's that's that makes it 10 times better. That's good.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, definitely. You got to tap through it. Yeah. Yeah, just saying stop and then not allowing yourself to go there. You're just suppressing. Yeah, we just suppress that way.
Right.
So that's the difference in suppressing, distracting, and actually tapping through it and then going and revisiting it. Yeah. All right. It's 10 o'clock, I guess, or 11. Thank you everyone. And next week we'll pick up with how to make a bad memory worse. And very similar, it's not much different, but um and then why am I so screwed up and broken and what to resist versus the resistance. So it was really good conversation, good discussion. Thank you so much. Every time we all get to learn so much more. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay.
Have a very good weekend and have a very good week and the rest of the weekend and everything. See y'all. Bye.